Steve Poltz, turns out it's you,
It is.
and you're back in eTown Hall.
I'm not an apparition.
No,
I'm
man.
actually here.
This is no hologram.
No, it's not 3D.
Yeah. And it's been a weird couple of years. I mean, your show was booked to be an eTown show that was like the one that was the first one we canceled. Middle of March 2020, right when the whole thing just kind of like, I don't think we should do this. And you and Robin Hitchcock, we had to pull the plug.
Mine was the one that got away. And I remember I was on the phone with you and you were like, I don't know. I heard South by Southwest just canceled and should we cancel? And it's up to me.
Yeah.
And Robin was already out here and I thought, I don't know that I want to get on a plane.
Right.
Everything was falling like dominoes. If you think about this, what were we like a month before it? There were whispers of it in hushed tones.
Yeah.
I was on a cruise ship called Cayamo.
Right.
I took 2 cruise ships back to back. I did Jam Cruise, got off Jam Cruise, and then
Jam Cruise wasn't a super spreader event. I mean, it's like if there was any COVID anywhere, it would have been there.
It should have been.
Yeah.
And I think a couple people got sick.
Yeah.
And then our crew, I mean, if you had followed me around with a documentary camera crew, you would have thought I was trying to kill my father because I brought my dad on Cayamo. Wow. And he was 90 years old, God bless him. And I brought him on there and the Beach Boys were playing and all these different artists, like, Cayamo,
Yeah,
like
sure.
John Prine, all the different people that do it. And so I brought my dad and I told everybody, because I would play these shows that I did the Stardust Theater. There's like 1,000 people. I did a show called A Brief History of My Life. I had a slideshow and I spoke about growing up with my dad. I made it really funny and heartwarming. Then I had my dad stand up in the audience and I said, if you see my dad, hug him. Little did I know, this was late February. And our crew at the cruise ship had just come in from China, and a lot of them were Chinese, probably from Wuhan, for all I know.
Wow.
And then I said to the people that ran the cruise ship, can I do a show just for the people that are the crew that work?
Wow.
So they took me to the bowels of the boat with no ventilation, and I did a show with my friends Sarah and Sean Watkins. And we did
Nickel
this
Creek.
show together. And then I said to everybody, that's my dad. And all the crew, I said, hug him.
Oh,
and my
God.
dad was hugging them all. And then I came back and did a sold-out show at the Belly Up Tavern in San Diego. Sold-up show the next day at Music Box in San Diego. And my dad introduced me, and I had Steve Wozniak drive down and pick my dad up in his Tesla from Northern California. He drove down. I said, will you pick my dad up and take him to my show? And Wozniak did. And then Wozniak came out to introduce me. And Wozniak, it turns out, was patient number 1 of COVID.
That's right.
And he's had his arm around my dad. And then my dad came out and recited Shakespeare. He was like, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps into this petty time. And then I told everybody, hug my dad. My dad was in the middle of the crowd.
Jeez,
it was
Louise.
late February.
Yeah.
And I flew back home to Nashville. There was a tornado 3 blocks from my house, wiped out everything in East Nashville where I live. There was a fence that landed in my front yard. Our house was spared. I don't know how. And then we were all saying, I think there's this weird thing. We might have to cancel like a week of shows.
Right.
But little did I know, I was putting on a tornado benefit, and I had Buddy Miller, I had Rhett Miller, all the Millers.
Yeah.
And Langhorne Slim, all these different people, neighbors, and they all played this tornado benefit. It was March 12th. I've never forgotten this. And JT from Birds of Chicago.
Sure.
I ran into a turnip truck in Nashville, and he was wearing a mask, and I came home and said to my wife, God, he's super paranoid.
Right.
I literally trash talked him and told him about it recently. He was laughing so hard. And then little did I know.
A couple days later, you were planning to get on a plane and come here.
I was going to come here, and I was going to be on eTown, and then that got canceled, and we thought, it's just going to lay low for a month, and it was a 2-year shutdown.
And so how much longer did your dad live? You played that beautiful and poignant song about your parents being gone.
Yeah, so that song's called Conveyor Belt. And when I sing it, I use this word called bahootensie. And bahootensie is a word my dad used to always say when he'd cough. So my dad would go, bahootensie. And when he was on his deathbed, he'd said it his whole life. And I just was used to him saying bahootensie. And on his deathbed, I said, Dad, you've always said Behootensie. What does Behootensie mean? And he said, I made it up. It means many blessings. Let's go nuts. And so I was holding his
Did your
hand.
dad come from another country? Where's your dad from?
We were all from Canada, but
Right.
the relatives were all from Hungary.
Hungary, okay.
Yeah, so Poltz was actually Polcz, Polcz.
Yeah.
And then they changed it when they immigrated to Canada. They said nobody can say Poltz, so they changed the
Was your dad a
immigration
native
people
English
changed
speaker,
it.
though, when he was growing up?
He grew up speaking Hungarian, German, and English.
Okay.
And then they were tobacco pickers and lived in Winnipeg and then moved to Ontario, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And then he joined the RCAF, the Royal Canadian Air Force.
Right.
Met my mom, who was from Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, a land of fiddlers, as my buddy Ketch Secor
Yeah.
always reminds me. And so my dad met my mom.
And you were
out
born in
there.
Halifax, right?
I was born in Halifax. And so, and my uncle was a genius piano player, my mom's brother. And so then we moved to the United States, and that's how I ended up here today talking to you.
Well,
So-
hopefully your dad lived a little longer. Then you didn't actually kill him at the Cayamo cruise.
I did not kill
despite
him.
trying your best.
You would have thought I was trying to.
Yeah, that sounded ominous. But,
And so the pandemic happened, and then we were in Nashville where I live, and it gets really swampy there in the summer, and the mosquitoes. So we just said, what are we doing here in the summer? And we're shut in. Let's rent a place on the beach, and I could be with my dad. So that was a blessing, because I was with my dad every other day, because he lived in San Diego.
yeah.
I'd take him to lunch with two other 90-year-old women, and they said they weren't allowed to eat together, because if it came into if COVID was to come into this place where they lived,
Yeah, nursing home.
yeah, it's kind of like a independent living facility, if you will, with a nursing home attached. So my dad lived alone, but they would eat together. And so I would take him away from the campus every day with two 90-year-old women, and I'd buy him lunch. Every other day we'd bring two different 90-year-old women and go on double dates with them. It was so fun. I loved them. And then my dad got sick, but it wasn't COVID. His kidneys finally gave out. And he was 90, and his mind was sharp till the day he died.
Wow.
It was beautiful, and so...
Yeah, and it's poignant being finally an orphan. When your parents live that long, when your dad lives to be 90, you've spent most of your adult life with a parent.
I know.
And when you don't have a parent anymore, it's different.
It is, and my mom passed away before my dad, 2 years before my dad.
Yeah.
And so when your parents pass away, and if they do it at home like mine did, you become the ad hoc sort of hospice nurse. And the hospice nurses just leave you with all the morphine and the Ativan. And my mom, she knew she was going to die. Both of my parents were ballsy. They both elected to kind of die. Like my mom could have got a heart valve put in, but she was 88, her eyes had gone out, and she said, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. And they said, well, if you don't take these antibiotics, you're going to die. And she said, I know. And so she went home, and I was the hospice nurse and would give her the morphine and the Ativan. And then my dad didn't want to see it happen, so he stayed in the room. And then that was hard because she was gone. But I got really good at it, at then going to Social Security, all the things you have to do, getting rid of the clothing. I feel like I went through this wild education on death.
Yeah.
And then my dad lived 2 more years, and he wanted to be with my mom. His kidneys gave out, and they said, you can get dialysis. And he said, nope, I'm ready to go.
Wow.
So I learned something, and that is kidneys are the way to go, because you just kind of peace out and go to sleep. You're not really in pain. You just...
You don't suffocate.
You don't suffocate.
Yeah.
And I just kept giving them the morphine and the Ativan, and they just sort of transition over to the other side.
Well, let me talk to you a little bit about, I mean, you're a very personal songwriter, even though they're not autobiographical songs all the time, but you share a lot with your audience. Funny stuff, heartfelt stuff, sad stuff, crazy stuff, political stuff, all the stuff. All the things.
Yes.
You don't hold back.
No, I don't. And so I think it's because I grew up in seeing plays on at the Hollywood Bowl. I was raised kind of by a gay Uncle Louie, and that's my mom's brother, and he was very dramatic piano player, and he taught me to sing from my diaphragm. And Uncle Louie took me to see Julian Bream play classical guitar at the Hollywood Bowl when I was 6 years old. And then when I left the concert, he always called me boy, and he said, "Boy, what do you want to learn? Piano, banjo, or classical guitar?" And of course, I just left Julian Bream watching this guy with a solo spotlight at the Hollywood Bowl, and I said, "I want to learn classical guitar, Uncle Louie." So my parents had this guy come over to the house. I'm not even kidding you, Nick. He had a wooden leg and a glass eye, and he was a World War II veteran. And he knocked on the door, and then I let him in, and I was holding my dad's hand. I've never forgotten that. I'm a little 6-year-old kid. And the guy came in, and we had an old guitar we found in the attic. It was a nylon string. It had 3 strings on it. The rest were broken. I watched him restring it. And then one thing he did that I've never forgotten, he popped out his glass eye and asked me if I wanted to hold it, but I was too scared. And to this day, I regret not holding that glass eye.
Wow. Talk about another highly unsanitary move.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, let me have a 6-year-old kid hold my glass eye and then I'll pop it back in the socket. Yeah.
And he had a wooden leg. He'd let me knock on his wooden leg.
You must have been scared shitless because of that guy.
And he brought out this booklet, and it was the Mel Bay guitar method.
Sure.
And the first song I learned was Down in the Valley.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget the feeling of my heart sinking, because I was into Elvis Presley. It was 1966. Yeah. And I watched the Elvis Presley movies, and I wanted to rock like Elvis Presley, and I had to play Down in the Valley. And then, of course, the Beatles came on Ed Sullivan, and it was,
there you go.
My mind exploded, and I would ride my bike to the record store. I'd be so excited when I knew the Beatles had a new record coming out.
Yeah.
I would get my allowance. I'd mow people's lawn just to get that record. Man, I remember when the White Album came out. I remember when Let It Be came out.
There's a couple stinkers, too.
Oh, yeah.
I bought one. I was the same way, and I remember going to one. I bought an album. It was like maybe right after the Beatles' second album.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like mostly interviews and weird like press things. And I was like, this isn't what I was hoping, because you buy the record and you take it home and then you hear it. It's like, you don't know what it's going to be. It's like, hey, this looks like a Beatles record.
And you'd read all the liner notes, and you would know the songs and how they segued into the next song.
Oh, yeah, the sequence was...
So the sequence, if you were with your friends and you knew a record, once it ended, you'd start singing the next song before it started. Yeah. They just went together, and all the time that went into sequencing records, how they worked, is sort of not so important today, because people just listen to stuff on shuffle.
Or live singles, yeah.
Yeah, on their phone, and it's just the way that it is.
And apparently the Beatles actually did sequence their records, but then the American record company changed the sequence.
They would.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Robert's not on one of the records. It's only on the British import. Yeah. And they would change the album covers.
Right.
And, yeah.
Well, let me bring it up to date. We are...
Hey, Nick, can you pause 1 second?
Yeah.
Says Steve, if you don't mind, just kind of, like when you have your arm over here, it's good.
Yeah.
Like if it's up here, it's kind of blocking.
Oh, gotcha.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry, if that's not comfortable.
No, it's good.
So eTown's been around a long time. And one of the things that we've always paid attention to is more than the music, or as much as the music, we've been really thinking about how we are as a society and how we treat each other and how we treat the planet. We've had environmental ethos as being part of what we do. In every show, there's conversations and interviews with people who know about that stuff, or people who are doing outstanding sort of civic engagement things, volunteering, trying to make something better. So we've always aimed in that direction, and now we find ourselves in this wacky time where there's some precarious stuff going on in the world, and conflicts in Ukraine and between Ukraine and Russia, of course, and as you mentioned, the tornado in Nashville and crazy weather events and climate chaos is happening. And music is a powerful healing force, and it's a connector. There's a lot of things that divide us, and there are those who try to divide us. And so music, and especially I think you do a great job of bringing all kinds of people together, because there's something for everybody in one of your shows. There's some poignant stuff, there's some funny stuff, there's some personal stuff, there's classics, there's covers, there's stories. As you're traveling around and you kind of engage with your audience because that's your style, are you seeing things, in this gently post-COVID world? Are you seeing anything being different than it was prior to this pandemic?
That's a great question. I felt at first that people were a little bit gentler and kinder to each other, but I feel like we're just human beings and we're all just bullying our way through and trying to get where we're going. And so we have to remember to take time and look people in the eye and know that everybody has a story. Mm-hmm. I mean, all these wars and everything that's happening, if you look at it, there's a history. There's a long book with a lot of chapters that happened before what happened. And as they always say, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it again.
Right.
And that seems to be sort of the loop we're in as human beings on this planet. And when you really study it and you look, it's not just, you could take any example along history, but let's just do a current one since we're sitting here. It's current. Like Putin invades Ukraine. And who's really getting the real news? Who isn't getting the news? Why would he do this? Mm-hmm. Was he slighted, after Gorbachev, after the breakup of all that? And you look at the history and you go, okay, he annexed Crimea. Are we going to let him do this? And how far do we let someone go? Is this going to be like Neville Chamberlain,
right,
appeasing Hitler? And,
right,
and all these stories. And what is the lead up to him taking umbrage with the West? And so it's
old. He's been feeling that forever, yeah.
So there's all this information at our fingertips, and I think we have to remember to listen. And listening's such key, and remember, everybody has a story.
Yeah.
And everybody's a human being with a heartbeat that has this, they all have this wild chapter in their lives of something that happened.
Well, Neville Chamberlain did some listening.
Yes.
And he was, fed a pack of lies.
I know.
And so it's funny, you have to be discerning. You have to listen, but you also have to be discerning, and you have to study and be informed.
You do.
So when I think about what's coming, because nobody knows, we're trying our best every day to bring some light into the world and to share it. If you were to focus on one thing, obviously you're out there, you're playing music, you're connecting, you're lifting people's spirits. If you had one thing that you could sort of change or shift, that would be, poignant and meaningful for you, where do you think you would put your energy? If you had some great power and you could change something right now, what do you think you would change?
I always want to be everywhere at once. I wish I had that superpower because I want to play every city, play every show, because when I play shows, people leave and they're in a good mood, and I feel like I did good work.
Right.
I really believe, and maybe I'm just delusional, but I believe after my shows, through the power of song and story, that people meet each other, mm-hmm, and they establish new relationships, mm-hmm, and maybe they get a charge of an energy charge, like a booster shot of, mm-hmm, maybe patience, mm-hmm, a little bit more empathy. Mm-hmm. And then I also have an evil side in me that wishes I could just be invisible and show up and take out some world leader. And nobody would know, and then just disappear and let people get on. Yeah. Because I don't know where we're headed with all this, the rise of the autocracy and the rise of people controlling news.
It seems like the autocrats are, generally speaking, kind of humorless.
They are humorless.
They don't have a sense of humor.
No. They don't know how to laugh at themselves.
Yeah. They're too insecure.
So true.
Yeah.
And if you lose your self-deprecating sense of humor,
yeah,
you're really missing out on something because you're losing irony.
Yeah.
They need to take irony pills.
There you go. Irony supplements.
Yeah, irony supplements. We should write that song together.
Yeah. All right. And create the product.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think we need to put it in a bottle.
But that's a good question. But I just all the travel, you know how they say we get paid for the travel?
Right.
We do the shows for free.
Exactly.
I've traveled my whole life, Nick. It's what I've always done. When I was a little kid, I looked at the globe, and I remember saying to my dad, where's Niger? I would look at it. What's Africa like?
Yeah.
Can I go there? Where can I go? Where am I able to go? And through the power of music, I've been able to play so many places. And the most wonderful thing is people always come up afterwards. They're like, we have a cabin. You can have it. Do you need a car? Come into town.
Yeah.
What kind of food do you like?
Right.
Just for playing songs. And it all
Yeah.
started when I was a kid and I brought the guitar to show and tell. And I remember I didn't have many friends prior to that because I stuttered and had asthma and eczema. And then I did show and tell, and I came in and sang Sloop John B. And I sang the song One Tin Soldier from the movie Billy Jack with Tom Laughlin. Remember that movie?
No.
Oh, it was a great movie about this guy, Billy Jack. And he fought for the rights of Native Americans. He was half Native American, but he also knew karate really well. So he could beat up these rednecks. And man, I sang One Tin Soldier, that song. Go ahead and hate your neighbor. Go ahead and cheat a friend. I remember my hands were shaking so bad. And I sang it, and I went back out to where I'd sit alone at lunch, and there were 6 girls around me. And I remember thinking to myself, this is all I got to do? I'm never going to have to work again. Because guys wanted to be around the girls. And then everybody said, where'd you learn to play guitar? And so I feel really grateful that I'm able to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And the world benefits from people who can put it all together.
Yeah.
You can combine the skills because you put in the time, studying classical guitar, writing songs, creating, recording, touring, honing, getting good stories, sharing good stories. You put in the time, and so now you have this ability to lift people up. And it's powerful. And we appreciate the fact that you stopped by here at eTown again because we know you're kind of a crusader. You're out there doing the thing.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like is now I'm 62 and I don't know where the time went, and there's so much less time ahead of me. There are fewer minutes in my life, and I know that, but I feel like music is the fountain of youth because I feel like I'm getting younger. And the reason I don't want to die is because I want to see what songs come next. Every year I go, man, I can't wait. Like, I'll say this at the end of 2022, I'll go, what new songs will exist in 2023 that didn't exist?
Yeah.
Conveyor Belt, the song I sang, didn't exist.
Right.
And it was a gift, that song.
Yeah.
Stardust and Satellites, that album didn't exist. How many more albums will I be able to make?
Yeah.
Who will I meet? Who will I collaborate with? Who will I write songs with?
Well, don't let it become an anxiety.
No, it's not an anxiety.
It's a desire.
But it can
Yeah.
fill you with a sense of ennui and sort of make you sometimes get really introspective. Or me, I'm speaking for myself.
Yeah.
Where
Well,
every once in a while-
I'm older than you, but I think we both have a lot of miles behind us and a lot of amazing music that we've been able to make.
And miles to go before we sleep.
And miles to go, yeah.
Who said that?
You did.
Okay.
Here's to you.
Thank you, Nick. I love you.
Thanks, Steve. Love you too, man.